people with COVID have increased risk of developing manic symptoms, which is contributing to this whole autoimmune hypothesis. And it's not just bipolar. People also have new psychotic symptoms when they first develop COVID. And we've known for a while that COVID is one of those viruses that likes to invade and cause inflammation in the central nervous system. And then now we're seeing all these central nervous system effects. So we're scratching our heads a little bit because before we were subordinated to the monoamine hypothesis where we're like, too little of serotonin and I get all depressed, too much and I get manic. Turns out the brain's way more complicated than that. So we're going to talk about my favorite paper on mania, the functional neuroanatomy of mania. This came out about 2 years ago, and I still reference it today, and I use it to teach students. But before we go any farther, we have to say the oath. We as a society know shockingly little about mania, and much of this is based on hypothesis and observation. It's very hard to apply deductive reasoning to these postulates, especially around fMRI studies, but it's better than we've been before. So all this is not gospel, but interesting and food for thought. Okay, so this paper talks about how there's these circuits that run between your anterior cingulate cortex. Sorry, let me zoom in for you. We have a circuit between your anterior cingulate cortex, so that's kind of this region right here. Then we have your basal ganglia, and we have your amygdala. Your amygdala has a lot to do with fear, facial recognition, and sensing stuff in your environment. Your anterior cingulate cortex actually has a lot of implications in things like ADHD, impulsivity, goal-directed behavior, things like that. Basal ganglia mediates a lot of these things. It also has a lot of implications in movement. So what we see is on one side, this left side, everything is going buck wild and is hyperactive. The almost mirror circuit of that is hypoactive. And it's important because this ventral medial prefrontal cortex, so your big thinky think and your ventral lateral prefrontal cortex are in charge of tempering these impulsive behaviors. People with ADHD have hypoactivity as ventral medial prefrontal cortex. And so when they take stimulants, it increases their activity and they can actually like press the brakes a little bit. So think about this whole prefrontal cortex area as like the police officer or the brake line or something, and they're asleep at the wheel. So when you don't have that check from the right side of your brain telling the left side to chill out, it just goes wild and you feel like you have to accomplish a million things and you don't even feel the need for sleep and you feel elated and you're euphoric. And what's so bad about that? Well, it can be, your brain can be going so fast that you lose control of it and damages things. If you just press the accelerator into the floor on the highway, sure, you'd go 130 miles an hour and you'd probably get to your destination faster, but you can't park. You're just going to drive into the barrier, and it's going to cause a lot of strain on your car. Going fast is good in controlled environments, but we have brakes for a reason. So when I think about mania, I kind of conceptualize it as this electrical activity that's normally opposing and measured between itself on our right and left side of our brain. So we have our prefrontal cortex here on the right side. It's kind of doing the checks and balances, making sure everything is working as it should. And then the left brain, the amygdala and the basal ganglia are like, let's do stuff, let's fire, let's go crazy. They're kind of in tension with each other. But then when the right side comes down, falls asleep at the wheel, everything goes buck wild. What that is not is just one neurotransmitter going up or one neurotransmitter going down. But if you have any kind of inflammation that affects this part of the brain that can cause the brake lines to get cut, then things can happen. But as you can imagine, a lot of stuff can probably cause those brake lines to get cut. You can look at things like lesional mania, where someone develops a stroke or a tumor or something really specific to these areas, and then subsequently develops mania after that. So the too long didn't read is you have irritation to some part of the brain that causes hypoactivity in some regions and hyperactivity in other regions. And I think about it kind of like unchecked electrical activity, similar to how like a seizure happens, even though this is between regions and they're functional neurocircuits rather than just cortical spreading of these signals. So where irritation from a seizure on your cortex may be more like the computer being caught on fire, mania would be more like the software glitching and opening way too many tabs at once. Everything else on the computer from the outside seems to be functioning. In theory, if someone has a disorder with uncontrolled electrical activity, they would be more prone to other disorders of the same type. So would someone with bipolar be more likely to develop epilepsy? That's a great question. And the answer is yes. It's a bidirectional relationship. There's this weird unexplained comorbidity between bipolar and epilepsy. And interestingly enough, ECT is really effective for bipolar mania, almost as if you're shocking and resetting all the uncontrolled electrical activity, and it can be useful for something like status epilepticus. So the authors, to their credit, discuss the neuroanatomical function of this to be a possible target for TMS. TMS is a whole nother video, but all you need to know is that we can directly stimulate parts of your cortex by sticking a magnet right on your skull, which is pretty crazy in and of itself. Maybe if we stimulate it a little bit, we can help prevent these manic episodes from happening, or we can help keep everything in check. I think it'd be really cool. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, guys. I'm disorganized. I've been going through a lot of stuff emotionally. I don't know if I'll cut this part of the video or not, but, I just kind of want to get this out there. I might organize it in a little bit of a better video later.